Get to the church plant! Get to the church plant! Go! Now!
I'm Pete Mitchell, and he's Peyton Jones, and you're listening to Hardcore Church Planning, the companion podcast for the Church Planner Podcast and Church Planner Magazine. Each week, we'll bring you interviews from planners who are in the trenches making it happen right now. These active church planners bear it all, share their successes, their failures, and what they'd wish they'd known when they were first starting out. Listen in to discover how God is working in their church plant.
You know, when I have a large project at home, sometimes it makes sense to do it by myself. At other times, I actually save money in the long term and have a much better solution if I use an expert. It's really not that much different with church planning. Church planners who focus on building their core team and actually planting the church and partner with portability experts like Portable Church Industries hit the ground running. Yes, you may have to raise more funds up front, but let me tell you something. If I could go back in a time machine and do one thing different in all the churches that I planted, I would go back and have invested that money in Portable Church and all of the super cool kit that they give you to make the volunteers and their lives much, much easier. Trust me, your volunteers will feel invested in, and they're going to give you more of what they got. And that time where people are setting up is going to be a time where it sets the atmosphere for you to thrive. If you're thinking about launching in the next 6 to 36 months, we encourage you to check them out at portablechurch.com.
Hey, church planner, welcome to Hardcore Church Planning. This is where we interview church planters who are in the trenches, doing it, making it happen. And I have with me today a church planner who's actually in New York in a public space as we're doing this. So forgive the background noise. What we're going to do today is we're going to do one because Brandon is a personal trainer and he is a church planner. That's how he pays his bills, is doing personal training. But he started something specifically for church planters and pastors. Here's the deal. This is really cool. What Brandon is passionate about, Brandon Woodruff, my guess, what he is passionate about is actually helping pastors and church planners to get fit so that they can maximize their potential as ministers. It's a big deal. I'll talk a little bit about my experience with this and why I think it's important. But first, I want to let you get to know Brandon a little bit. So I'm going to hand over, now that I've introduced him, let you say hi to him, let him tell you how he came to faith and how he got involved in church planning. So Brandon, welcome on to Hardcore Church Planning.
Thanks, Peyton. Appreciate it.
So Brandon, how'd you come to faith, man?
Well, I guess for me, it's not like one of those, I have a solid date, can't tell you exact time, anything like that. It was more, I came to faith. My dad shared the gospel with me when I was about 6 years old. And I prayed the prayer and everything, did something like went home, beat up my brother or something, no life change. Around 14 is when I really began to just see the life change. That's when the Lord it was almost as though he told me, it was almost as though he said, all right, you're my child, you're not going to live like this anymore. And I was like, okay, started following and, been a whirlwind ever since. I'm 29 now. And so, yeah, came to faith in that way.
How did you get involved in church planting?
Yeah, so that is only a story that's about a year old. I was in the Air Force until about April of this year, 2017. About a year ago, my wife and I, we knew our time in the military was drawing near. I had already, since the call to ministry, didn't really know how that was going to play out. We were applying to different churches all over the U.S., just trying to seek the Lord, see where he wanted us to go. It turned out that there was a church here in Brooklyn that was looking for somebody. We came up here. We were initially connected to a Chinese church up here. I'm a North American Mission Board church planning intern, just kind of learning it and things. It's a long story. Things at that church plant didn't work out. We wound up serving in a different church plant here. And so I'm serving there. It's kind of a replant. We're serving there. It's just going awesome. And at the same time doing the North American Mission Board church planter training. So right now just learning, serving, and seeing how the Lord plays that out. But the more we've been in it, the more we've sensed the call toward church planting, and whatever that's gonna look like. So yeah.
That's rad. Well, man, look, I know you're passionate about health and fitness, and as a personal trainer, you have launched a website and a membership with the intention of really helping out people in ministry who are juggling jobs and ministry and family to help them get fit. What's the importance of people looking after their bodies? Because, you know, if we're honest, right? I mean, I have plenty of times neglected my body in ministry and have brought it back. And I'm currently, you know, I'm in great shape for myself, you know. I'm not, you know, Daniel Craig. I'm not going to have the James Bond washboard stomach anytime soon.
Right.
But I gotta say, you know, I'm not doing bad for a 44-year-old guy. I'm running, I'm eating right, doing all that kind of stuff, doing a little bit of isometrics. I don't lift heavy anymore. I used to be in a bodybuilding when I was little, funny enough. When I say little, I mean like 16, 17. It was a thing in the 80s, but, you know, it's something that's just kind of become, and I'll share a little more of my story, but you tell us, what is the importance of physical fitness in relation to the rest of it?
Yeah. So I think that, you know, just like you were saying, sometimes, those of us in ministry, it can just be really easy, you know, to put yourself on the back burner. And I think that's, I mean, in the majority of things, that's a good thing, right? I mean, that's what we're going for. But there are a few things, like especially things such as, you know, time in the Word, time in prayer. If you begin to slip on those, don't keep those built into your life, you run out of stuff to give. And fitness, you know, although it's less important, as First Timothy tells us, I think that it is just one of those things where if you start to neglect it, or if you just don't pay any attention to it for a while, like you said, not everybody has to be a bodybuilder, but if you don't pay attention to it for a while, you kind of you limit your effectiveness, your capabilities, you know, not just physically, but mentally in a lot of ways. There's just a ton of things that my experience, even personally, and people I've talked with and worked with, their experience is just so much better in the things that they're able to do, the way that they feel, you know, when they are taking care of looking out for their physical health. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'll share with you a little bit, about me here in my story. You know, I was raised, to be fit. I mean, my older brother was super into fitness, and I got into it, and I went to the gym and did all that and started eating right and saw it affected everything, you know. Then I became a staff nurse, and I learned that simple things like, you know, a little bit of exercise every day would increase your mood and produce certain chemicals in your brain that would help fight off any kind of depression or heavy mood swings. Diet was big on that. And I started learning that, hey, there's this kind of like connection between what my body physically does and then what my soul feels and what it experiences. And then I started reading, you know, I read a lot of dead people, you know, like a lot of the fathers of the faith or people from the Victorian age or 1700s. And Wesley was super big on this. He was super big on the mission, as we all know, and he was super big on looking after his body because he felt if he was fit, he could do all this crazy stuff. Like literally the guy would sometimes ride 100 miles a day. Now, if you've ever ridden a horse, you know, it takes a huge amount of core strength and you have to build physical endurance to ride a horse. I know that sounds weird, but you know, it's like cycling. I mean, you know, even like your upper body, your all the different muscles, it's all important. And so then I became a nurse and I started learning even deeper about the brain body connection. And I started thinking theologically that if, like Spurgeon, you know, Spurgeon was like, hey, I have to go for walks or I'm prone to depression. Spurgeon would say, I have to get out in the fresh air and garden. I have to do physical things because my job is mental. Rick Warren has said things like this. So when you start understanding how God created the body, you start understanding that it really is a tool and a weapon Paul calls the instruments of your body weapons of righteousness. And so if you look after your tool, which is your brain, your body, your lungs, your heart, then you can go the distance. And so, what are some of the things? So tell us a little bit about your ministry. What's it called and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So it's called Lifting Your Cross. And basically what it is the majority of it is an online personal training business. So what I do is when someone reaches out to me, they let me know, hey, I'm interested in getting fit. Whatever their goals are, the first thing I'll do is I'll have them fill out a survey. It just kind of gives me an idea of where they are, where they want to be, what some of their challenges have been as to in the past of why they're not, where they want to be. And I'll go through some of that stuff. And then I'll just kind of prepare some stuff there, get on the phone with them and just go through it. We'll talk through the ways that I can best help, find a plan that fits for them. And from there, I will build everything custom to them. What I do is customize workout. So it's not like a cookie cutter, cut and paste kind of thing. It's more of okay, this guy blew his knee out in high school. We're going to look after that. We're not going to have him doing heavy squats to begin with. This person has this allergy, that allergy. So obviously I'm not going to have them eating those kind of things. We just do everything custom right to you. Based on the calories you need, the workouts you need, all of those kind of things. That's what we do. Also, starting up a thing now where it just literally kicking it off within the past couple of weeks, where we even work with some church groups. So if there's any church that just says, hey, we have 5, 10, 20 people who are interested in this, we'll do like a group training plan for them as well, where we get to know each of the people a little bit and then do it a little bit more on a it's a little bit less personal, but we do like a big group call instead of the one-on-one call that we would normally do each week. But back to the one-on-one training, we have a weekly call where we check in after I don't just give them the plans and then hand them off. I create the plans for them, put them kind of in our software that we have created for this. And then after that, I set them up in an app called Marco Polo. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's like a video walkie-talkie, and we kind of go back and forth on there. I'm available for any questions they have at any point in there. We have a weekly phone call or Skype call, whatever they prefer to do. And then just where I go through a few questions. That was not really to answer questions as much as just me to see where they are, what's working, what's not, and make adjustments as needed. And then if they don't have Marco Polo on their phone or whatever, they can text me, email me. I'm pretty much always available. So I just try to stay connected. If they're in the gym and they're like, hey, this guy's, taking up the squat rack or the bench press, what can I do instead? Or if they pull up to a Taco Bell and they're like, hey, I would normally order this combo with something that's a little bit healthier option, I'm there to just kind of coach them on that and help them just at any moment of their day, just kind of make healthier choices. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell of what we're going for here. Just customization to them, find what's going to work for them.
That's really good, man. I love the fact it's customized. You mentioned something else that I think is really important. I follow a guy, for those of you that might be sensitive to language, which I am, actually. I don't cuss. I know that's kind of a strange thing, but cussing to me is linked to anger. So personally, but this guy has a foul mouth, but he's got a lot of solid gold, in what he says. His name's Gary Vaynerchuk.
I better know who you're going to say. Yep.
Of course you do. Yeah. And, Gary's he's a foul mouth guy with a heart of gold, but he's a marketer. Social media marketer is really what he's the guru of. And he really, he's super, super on it. He's a hustler. He's a go-getter. And those guys always fascinate me. So I pay attention to him and I watch him. But what Gary did is he could not master his health. And so what he did was, and he talks about it. He says, hey, I failed. I kept failing. And then he said, then I hired a personal trainer. And what I needed someone to keep me accountable. And of course, this guy's dropped like 40 pounds and he looks fantastic. Yeah. And he has said it has radically changed his mood, his energy level, everything. And I always think about ministry because ministry is so much about your energy level. if you could have like exhibit A and exhibit B doing the same thing on a day, but somebody who has the energy level. It's something I think Paul had. Paul had a physician traveling with him. I think probably because he had been beaten so much and wounded physically and just, injured, that he probably had a lot of aches and pains, probably needed a lot of treatment. The guy was a wreck, I'm sure. But at the same time, he knows exactly what to tell Timothy. He's like, hey, take a little wine for yourself. He's giving him some medicinal advice there. So Paul, I think, was like, hey, I gotta keep my body going because it is the vehicle of the gospel. If I can keep this body going, I can keep the gospel spreading. And so as you're looking at what is it about accountability, Gary Vaynerchuk found that to be almost like a silver bullet. Sounds like that's what you have a little bit going. Talk to us a little bit about that. What is accountability? How can that be the missing ingredient for people when it comes to fitness?
Yeah, sure, man. That happens a lot. I would just give you an example of one guy I'm working with right now. He is definitely your type A guy. He definitely knows. He has the knowledge. I mean, he's researched it. Every now and then there might be a little thing here or there that I'm like, okay, that's a little off base, and I correct him on. But for the most part, he knows exactly what to do. He just needs somebody in his life to kind of be there, not just to give him information that he has questions about, but also to just say like, hey, how was the workout today? Oh, this isn't working for you. Like, let me adjust this, give you this that might work a little bit better. You know what I mean? And it's really kind of that on the fly thing. What I try to base kind of everything I do off of one of three things. Everything I do falls under either knowledge, consistency, or intensity. Knowledge is like obviously just giving them the stuff they need to know to be successful. Then the second one is the consistency, which is a little bit more the accountability. That's the, hey, let's get this phone call every week and go through some stuff. Let's adjust your workout plan as needed. Let me check in with you. Some people every day, some people every week. Just depends on what they need to see how your workout's going, how your nutrition is going, all of those kind of things. And then the third is intensity, which is similar, but is always kind of not just staying where they are, but trying to help them reach that next level, that next step, whatever it is. So it could be somebody in the gym doing weightlifting, could be somebody just running. It could be somebody who's not even wanting to work out right now. They're just trying to get their eating under control. And always, for each person, as soon as I've had that initial consult with them, what I do is create kind of a step-by-step plan, as in this is going to be the first thing I'm going to give them to do for a week, 2 weeks, however long it takes them to get it under control. Then we're going to move for this next step. And I'm just going to always have something there for them to reach for next. So it's always not just keeping them kind of accountable to what they're doing now, but also looking forward to what the next step is. And they found that very helpful. Just instead of handing it off and saying, hey, here's your workout plan, stick to this, check in with me next year. It's more like, all right, here's your plan, check it out, let's talk. Okay. Yeah. So the program, basically what I do is, the first thing I'll do if somebody expresses interest, is I'll send them a link to a survey. What they'll do is they'll fill out the survey. That gives me a little bit of just background on their health, whether they worked with a trainer before or not, their any workout programs they've done, diet, all of that kind of stuff, just so I know kind of where they're coming from. Then we set up a call, talk through some of that stuff, and I give them a program designed specifically for them. So the workout plan, whatever they need nutritionally, it's all incorporated. So whether they've had some injuries that have flared up that we got to deal with, if they have some allergies to certain foods, if they just don't like certain foods, whatever, we try to just make sure that things are just customized exactly to them. Just because I'm a big believer in if it doesn't really fit you, or if you don't like it, or whatever the case may be, you're just not going to stick to it. And adherence to the program is what's really going to help you being able to make those long-term changes rather than just like quick fixes. So yeah, I'd say in a nutshell, just try to customize everything to them. After we set them up with the program, it's not like it just hand it off and tell them good luck. It's more of now we have a weekly phone call where we do some things and just go over it. That's more for me to kind of figure out what they need, what's working, what's not, what changes I need to be making. And then throughout the week, I'm available via several different avenues. I use an app called Marco Polo. It's like a video walkie-talkie for on-the-fly stuff. They can message me, whatever they're most comfortable with. But that's for anything, whether they're in the gym waiting on the squat rack and some guy's been there for 2 hours and they need a substitute. If they pull up the Taco Bell or something and need a suggestion of what to get, it's for those kind of things, just the on-the-fly help. So, and then I'm checking in with them. I'll give a step every week or a couple of weeks when they're ready of what the next thing to reach for is. And so from there, they'll be trying to reach whatever that next goal is or focus on whatever that next step is. And I follow up with them on that the next week on our phone call. So in a nutshell, that's the program.
That's cool, man. So what are some of the things for a pastor or church planter who right now is like, hey, man, I just don't, I want to be fit, but I just don't have a lot of time. What do you say to him?
Well,
because let's be honest, right? Like that's where the average guy's at. He's kind of like,
right, yeah.
I want to, but I'm just trying to juggle all these different things. What do you say to him? Well,
one big thing that I would tell them is that they need to make progress toward their goal, whatever that may be, whether it's, for a lot of people that I work with is to lose weight, to lose body fat. A few are trying to just like get a certain type of body, build a little bit more muscle and be more capable to do things. The biggest advice I usually will give is just make progress toward your goal, no matter how slowly it is. There are definitely steps that they can begin implementing, even if they've got 10 minutes a day that they can work in, whatever there is, we can always find ways to help them make steps. And what I'll do is, like, one guy I'm working with just told me the other day, I know his schedule better than like anybody else in his life, just because we're working on things, figuring out like how we can fit it in. He does all kind of stuff. He's a pastor. He's a marketer. He goes back and forth. Like he might just get on a dime, like have to fly from New York to California. It's that kind of lifestyle. And we've got him like on hit the gym a few days a week, 2 to 3 days a week, and then about to start incorporating some body weight stuff he can do wherever he wants to, whether that's a hotel room, his house. And so
it's funny you mention like that. Yeah. Because for me, I've done everything from like Insanity to T25, some of the Shanti stuff.
Yeah.
I was an avid lifter. I've been a runner for 20 something years.
Cool.
So for me, and I slack, like, I'll be honest, like there are times where I slack out, but just having, like, I'm getting ready to go up to the snow for a couple weeks, just having, like you said, like those weight things, like there's no way I'm running in the snow. You insane. Right. But I know what to do now. And for me, it comes back to discipline. One of the things that I would say is do it with your spouse. I run with my baby. So I got a baby jogger, and, it's like a stroller that, has wheels that are good for jogging, and, kind of like bike wheels. And I would take my baby, like I won't, if I make up my mind, I'm going to do it. I don't let anything stop me. And I promise you guys, I share a little bit of my story. And part of that is, Brandon's kind of like, he's like the training wheels. If you're that guy who says, hey, I know, like Gary Vaynerchuk, it's not going to work for me unless I get accountability. And it's like church. Think of it this way. Church is kind of like, you can go seek God on your own, but the way that God designed it is we grow best in community. So now Brandon's created what you already know, which is community. Now for me, I like the old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I always do stuff with my wife, and she's my partner, and we will get fit. She got me into running. I hated it. And for a certain time, excuse me, I was literally running so I could eat whatever I want. And that was when I had a sit-down job. If you're pastoring full-time, that's a sit-down job. That's not cool. And if you're working, like when I was a nurse and I was walking the hallways, I got fit. But anyways, The reality is, for me, my energy level, what I do, I'm a content creator. I create content nonstop. So if my body isn't in shape, it affects my performance. It affects my brain. The way I eat affects my mental state. And so if you understand how God designed the brain, all these things go together. So, for example, the video game community, they realize that, it's not just sitting in a room all day playing video games. So if you look at the sponsored gamers, they literally have an intense workout regime that they have to follow because, if you're going to be playing a video game, you got to keep your body in shape. Because otherwise, if you start putting weight on, your posture gets bad, you start pulling muscles, it affects your performance as well, how quick your brain, works, the neurons, the chemicals, all these things. People don't know this because they don't know a lot about health and biology. And so, one of the things that I could say right away is, guys, there are just simple things that you can do in your life that will increase. I mean, things and I know this is more your department, Brandon, but things like hydration. So many people are walking around dehydrated, and they don't realize like they could be, or just not sleeping enough. These things that people don't take seriously that make a world of difference and will affect them in their relationship with their spouse and kids. One of the guys I worked with, Mac Lake, he used to not eat good. And he said that he remembers when he was, he would come home, he'd lay down on the sofa and he'd throw the ball while he was laying on the sofa for his kids. Like, that's how bad he felt. Like, he was overweight and fat and he just had no energy. And now he's a grandpa and he's running around all the time with his kids because his fitness is in place. So imagine what you could do with ministry if you were fit. And so that's, that's why I keep fit, because I know it's going to maximize what I can accomplish for the Lord. My body's just a tool. I don't really care about being fit, but I do care about my maximizing my effectiveness.
Yeah. That's great. And I think that one other thing, you still there, Peyton?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think that one other thing, just to kind of give a little bit of a tidbit to people who are trying to get started. This is just kind of like a little thing I like to say is accept that there will be failures, but don't build them in. And let me just explain a little bit about what I mean by that. When it's just the first step. I think a lot of times, and I know you can attest to this, Peyton. I mean, a lot of times people, they don't start with things because they are scared to fail in them, and they don't start with things for a variety of just different, psychological barriers they have. And let me just give one example. I think that I don't like it when people call foods like bad foods or good foods, right? I think that's a really unhealthy way to look at food. I think what I've tried to advise people to do, and what a lot of people have told me is really helpful, is to think of foods kind of in terms of frequency. So an apple, something that has like one ingredient, is an often food. You have that, really often, several times a day. Like something that has a few more ingredients but still has a lot of nutritional value, something like a protein bar would be sometimes food. Have it sometimes. Don't make it like the basis of your diet, but have it, to give yourself that extra boost. Other things like, something like a Butterfinger ice cream, make those occasional foods. And when I say these categories, I don't mean necessarily, this has got to be like occasionally as in like you have it once a week. It can even be a daily thing. It's just, you got to know what you're doing with your calories, with your nutrition. There are ways to build these things in so that you can have them, every day. I think a lot of times people just think of it as, man, I've just got to completely change everything I'm doing. And I've talked to a few people who that is the way they operate. They just want to switch everything at once. But for the majority of people out there, it's small steps. It's, all right, focus on this. Okay, you got that down. All right, let's, here's something else to focus on. And before they know it, within several months, they've changed half the things they felt they needed to change anyway,
Yeah. No, it's really good, man. And I keep up with you, and, I kind of track with you. You and I have, kind of formed a relationship outside of this stuff. But, as a bivocational church planner, I mean, you're someone who gets all the struggles and what have you. And I just thought it was fascinating that you were a bivocational church planter doing this kind of work to pay the bills. And so I love that first off. But the reason I asked you to come on is I was kind of like, yeah, this is good for planters to know. A lot of ministers and planters neglect their health. I mean, we talk a lot about neglecting the family. The last thing a guy's going to want to do is, when he feels he's neglecting his family, is go out and go to the gym and be like, well, bye family. Yep. I'm going to take yet another slice from you. Yep. Excuse me. And, so here's the deal, a couple practical things that we've laid out, but Brandon, is available. I mean, this is what he does for a living. So if they want to get in touch with you, Brandon, where can they reach out and say, hey, Brandon, I'm willing to take this test, or, can you work a plan for me? You understand my life and what I'm juggling. I've got this, and I'm sure you're going to kind of take a holistic approach, look at their family, their time, their work, all that stuff, and come up with something. I've already kind of heard that. And like I said, I watch your website, and I watch your Facebook community group. And what's fascinating to me, I love that philosophy you mentioned earlier, where you mentioned that once you have your goals, the important thing is that you're moving towards them, that you're not going backwards. So you've been really encouraging with the guys, like, you're not going to do it overnight. And I think when January rolls around, people are kind of like fits and starts, as a British would say. It's like bursts of energy, and then they give up. So after a time, people might feel inspired, but then they go, but I know how that ends. And I love that yours is kind of like, hey, no, look, you keep your goal. You need to constantly be working towards that goal. If you constantly work, sometimes you'll make greater gains than others, but you will move closer and closer to it. And that is true. Like in the realm of health, that is so true. And there's always that point at which you start dropping weight, and then you hit a barrier, and you got to push through that, and you get discouraged, and you think, oh, I'm still fat, or whatever. And then you get through it, and then you realize all of a sudden, like, you wake up and you're like, dang, I'm skinny, but you know that it was because you persevered even when you were discouraged and like you weren't seeing gains anymore. And something, I don't know the science behind that, but that it takes hard work. But I love that you're more about consistency, and that wins the day, man. So if people want to reach out to you, Brandon, where do they get in touch with you?
Sure. So there's several different places. If they're on Facebook, there's a Facebook group I just started this past week. It's called Pastors Getting Fit. You can go join that. You can go to liftingyourcross.com, and you can my contact info is on there, or you can email me directly. It's just brandon.woodruff@liftingyourcross.com. That'll come straight to me. Instagram, Lifting Your Cross, pretty much anywhere you are, you can find me on there, except Twitter. I don't have Twitter yet. So.
Very cool. And if you check out that site, you'll see like Brandon has people that are on programs doing it, dropping weight, guys in ministry. So it's pretty cool. So, anyways, Brandon, thanks for coming on today, man. I appreciate you helping our guys out. And,
thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Keep doing what you're doing. And, thanks for hopping in the fight, doing this to help out. You found something that actually helps planters, while still, putting food on your table. So big respect for that, man. That's rad.
Thanks, Peyton. I really appreciate it, man.
All right, brother. Well, hey, thanks for joining us today for Hardcore Church Planting. My guest today has been Brandon Woodruff from liftingyourcross.com, and you can go there and find all about how to get in touch with him. And in the meantime, Arnold, sign us out.
Remember, if you are called to church planting, go hardcore or go home.
You've been listening to Hardcore Church Planting. Hardcore Church Planting has been brought to you by the Church Planter Podcast and the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the App Store for both Apple and Android devices. If you like this episode, leave us a positive review. If you didn't like this episode, we'll be happy to give you your money back.